all that you need for today's project is going to be some free plushies or cheap plushies that you can usually get from Facebook Marketplace, or if you have kids, then your kids, or just at thrift stores. So we're going to be making cute squeaky toys for your dogs on their 50 cents each, and the more that you make of these, the cheaper it gets. So let's get into it. You can usually get just regular size plushies at thrift stores for like 25 and 50 cents depending on the size that you're looking at. So these make really great affordable dog toys because of that. Usually the areas where the tag used to be are the easiest to find, the threads, so you can use that as a guide. As you go through the project, it will be easier if you have scissors that have a smaller tip, but as you can see, I'm using some regular size scissors and I'm still able to do this. All you need is some patience, a pair of scissors, and some thread, and of course the squeakers, and you're all set for success. As you keep breaking the threads, always like stretch it out after a few openings, just so that it'll make it easier for you. You put in the squeaker, you can take a little fluff about the size of the squeaker, and then that will give you the opening to put it in. After, you can add it in. If your dogs are not around, you don't have to be as careful, but because my dogs are around and I don't want them coming near, I'm trying to not to make the squeak. If you have extra space, go ahead and add back some of that fluff that you took out, and if you have any extra, you could always add it on to a toy that your dog broke. Now on toys like these where they're so long, you can figure out where you want to place it. I want to place it somewhere around here, so even though I made the hole here, I'm just taking out the fluff so I can push the squeaker through to the middle. As a trick, you can see on this one that the hole is a little too small, so to make it not sound, just lightly squeeze it around the edges, and that will allow you to put it in without letting your dogs know that you're making squeaky toys for them. So for the penguin, the section with the label was a lot harder to see the seams, so then I started looking on the sides, and you can clearly see the seams on the side, so we're going to open it up here. And this little penguin is one of the newest acquisitions. I slowly collect all of these plushies just because they're so affordable. So I slowly get them throughout the year. Any shopping trips that I make, I stop and I get them. And you can see that it still had the beads, so I just took them out. They always come in a little baggie, so just be careful whenever you're doing plushies that have the beads inside that you don't break the bag, otherwise it's a pain to try to pick them all up. If you see a plushie like this out in the wild, I highly recommend that you get it. I have two of them and both of my dogs seem to really like the shape and the size of this one, so this one would be great for any puppy. So in the previous love book, you saw that I opened it around the head, and in this one we're actually going to go ahead and open it underneath because the seams are also good here. So always look for the points that's less visible, that way you don't have to worry so much about the seams being perfect and the color of the thread and all of that. So always look for the easier route. As you're putting in the squeaker, remember to put it towards the middle so that there's cushion on both sides. And this is really important, especially if you have puppies like Keila who have sharp teeth that just squeak it and kill it just by pressing the squeaker. So the cushion will help it survive longer. And as you're opening the toys, like if there's sections of the toys that you're able to remove that you don't want, go ahead and do that. So like this section here is like a hard plastic, so I'm going to pull it out from there because I like the shape of the toy, but it's not something that we really need or want in our lives. And as you can see, it's just sewn on, so We'll break the seams for this one and get rid of it. Just be prepared for some extra work sometimes to make the plushies puppy proof. The bag exploding is probably the worst thing that can happen when you're refurbishing plushies or dog toys. Alright, so several minutes later, we finally finished getting rid of all of the balls. Remember, as you're getting rid of them, squeeze the beans so that there's nothing hidden in them, and then you can send everything to the body and then to your opening. So all of the plushies have been prepped so that I can sew them up close. Now there are still just a few more squeakers for toys that I don't have out here with me, just because this was all that fit in my baggie. But we are going to be able to make 20 plushies out of our investment. I wouldn't worry too much about making the perfect stitches. The main thing is just making small stitches from side to side so that it's harder for your dog to open it up. So I always start off with the knot being on the inside of the fabric. And then I'm just grabbing from one side to the other. If you're done with the thread, just try to cut it as close as possible to the plushie. If you're really worried about what threads you need to use, you can just get a little kit like this from the Dollar Tree. There's usually like a whole bunch of different bobbins, or it'll come in just wrapped like this. They're just emergency kits, and that's all that you need for these plushies. You're barely using any thread to close them up. But for me, I'm not too worried about making them look perfect, so I'm going to just keep on going with the red. Boy, you stole a plushie. Keila, this boy stole a plushie. Bring it back, boy. Ollie. Ollie. Come on. If this is your first time trying to sew, the way that you thread a needle is by find a needle that has a big eye. That's always going to be your best bet. And then push the thread through. And I wouldn't use a whole bunch of thread. Something like 6 inches should be enough for you to securely close up your toy. Unless you're using your toy like to tug, just a basic stitch will work. Good thing is also, like, depending on the type of plushie you get, like if you get plushies like these where they're fluffy, your stitching is barely noticeable because all of the fur will cover it up. So if you're worried about it, that is also an option. Sometimes, depending on the type of stitching that they did on your plushie, you will have scenarios like this where you only open the section but more of it opened up. So just kind of be mindful that that could occur. It's nothing specific, it's just because of the stitching style that the plushie was made with. As you're stitching, you want to make sure that you leave at least about like 1/8 of an inch on each side, so that when you do pull to make it tighter, it doesn't just break through the fabric, it stays where it's supposed to. And you're pulling as you're sewing just to close up any gaps. So make a stitch and pull, make a stitch and pull. And even though it looks like it didn't open itself here, because it opened all the way at the bottom, I'm just being safe and extra cautious and just closing it at the top as well. And for all the plushies, I always do a double knot so that it's more secure. Now that you learned how to create unlimited amount of plushies, go ahead and also watch this video right here where my mom teaches you on how to make a fabric basket so that you can keep all those toys organized so no one can see the mess or how much you're spoiling your dog, but your dog is to be as happy as can be. So she'll see you there, and please be sure to hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe.